Most benevolent people of YouTube, hello and welcome to the second part of our XCOM novel read-through. This is still chapter 1, but the chapters are quite big in this game. How used I am to games in this book. So we're not going to be covering a chapter in each video, in each whatever piece of audio, depending on how you're consuming this entertainment in quotation marks. So anyhow, in the last and the first and the last bit, we had a little fight with the aliens, some terror mission in Ravenna, and now we are going to be sort of dealing with the aftermath of that, because it starts with 1,003 miles away. A woman sat in a small windowless office. It had a desk, 2 plain chairs, the one behind her desk and the one in front of it, neither any more comfortable than the other, and a door with a dartboard fixed to the back of it. The dartboard showed signs of frequent and savage use, both for normal competition, the double ring was thoroughly pitted, and for other purposes. Right now, the center of the dartboard featured a thoroughly targeted picture of a man with a big, round, florid face and a mustache that seemed big and tough enough to jump off his face on its own and go off to seek its fortune. The picture had no eyes left, only beige cork showed where they should have been, and a dart was presently sticking cigar-like out of one corner of the formerly smiling and now ragged mouth. Another thing I think the writers should not be doing is when you talk about a corner of someone's mouth, you don't have to specify that it's one of them, because one thing can be only in one corner. We understand this. It's sort of basic stuff. Just saying. Anyway, Janelle Barrett sat behind the desk, which was very clean and shiny, occupied only by her computer console and one piece of paper. So no keyboard then. The floor, though, was chaotically piled with paper, tapes, diskettes, cassettes, and other detritus, all bespeaking a person who preferred the least kinetically loaded form of filing. Pile it up on the floor where it can't fall any further. Some of the piles, mostly the ones leaning against the wall, were quite straight and organized looking. Others were doing their best to threaten others. Others were doing their best to threaten others, slumping alarmingly sideways or forward. Great sentence. At the moment, Janelle herself was taking the latter approach to life. She was leaning on her elbows over that piece of paper, staring at it, while listening idly to the chatter over her computer's comm circuit from one of the teams out on intercept. Keep it quiet now. Boss will be annoyed if we come back without any goodies. Janelle smiled slightly, a one-sided, crooked expression. She shook her head in particular way, sideways, which activated her secretary's link. Okay, let me just do that again. She shook her head in a particular way, sideways shake of the head. As in, not up and down, but side to side, which activated her secretary's link. Okay. Hey, whatever you say, man. Joel? Yeah, boss. That's 5 on the blower now, is it? Right, they're in Tripoli. Give me Team 8. Where are they now? Still chasing their chicken, boss. Somewhere over the med. Where's 3? Ravenna. The smile got more crooked. The criminal returns to the scene of the crime, Janelle said softly. Colonel Lawrence take a team down there before? Not a team, Janelle said and smiled more crookedly yet. Jesus, she's gonna crook up. Never mind. This is also Janelle saying, by the way. Her earpiece clicked and someone said, "Over here behind this giant tit, boss." "That's a mausoleum, you big dumb..." Yeah, oh god, you have to go through this dialogue again. Nicole Tourney. Jesus Christ. "Haven't you ever seen a mausoleum before?" Her eyebrows went up. "The model of tact, as always," Janelle murmured. "Boss?" "Nothing, Joel." The silence from her secretary's link suggested raised eyebrows and an opinion that more than nothing was involved. Janelle waggled her own eyebrows, Jesus, at her dartboard, then reached out and straightened the piece of paper in front of her. It said, "To Barrett Janelle, Commander of XCOM, Irhil Magoon?" I don't understand. XCOM Irhil Magoon. IRHIL Magoon. Okay, never mind. Whatever that means. From Kenny, Dennis Kenny, apparently, Senior Commander, XCOM Central. Alright. "With immediate effect, you are promoted Regional Commander, Southern Europe, North Africa. Authorization, documents, and code keys follow by courier." They didn't even say congratulations or something like that. It's a bit dry. That had been nice to read the first time, and it had made her smile when it landed on her desk the previous week. 13 months now, she had been commander down here in Irhil Magoon. Oh, it's actually a place? Okay, never mind. Sorry, my ignorance. I have no idea where this is. Not what you would normally call a peach assignment, not down here where the major natural resources were rock and sand, or if you went out your way looking for something different, sand and rock. Morocco was a serious pain in the neck. Okay, so that's a Moroccan place. Okay, I apologize to all the Moroccan people listening and watching this now for my ignorance. Take a part of the world that held little to interest anyone, human or alien, you would have thought anyway. Dig a deep hole in it, well, several holes, and build a base. Stock it with several hundred stir-crazy scientists, researchers, and worst of all, pilots and soldiers. Then just sit there and twiddle your thumbs. That was what the former commander had done. Janelle couldn't understand how anyone who had risen through the ranks in XCOM could possibly think that a base was a place that would just run merrily along by itself without serious attention or constant infusions of money. The former commander had mismanaged the place until there were chronic staff shortages, equipment shortages, even food shortages. Janelle had trouble understanding how such a situation had been allowed to go on for so long. Whether the commander had the fabled friends in high places, or whether, as Janelle suspected, the people in high places had simply been too distracted with more severe problems elsewhere. Either way, Irhil Magoon had gone quietly to hell in a handbasket, and no notice was taken until the aliens' Good Friday terror attack on Rome. Janelle grimaced at the memory. Irhil had been the only base in a position that day to handle that particular interception. They hadn't handled it. The result had been more than 600 dead and the oldest part of Rome devastated. What 2,000 years of weathering, tourist chipping, and opportunistic quarrying had failed to do, the aliens had done in about 10 minutes, leaving the Colosseum a pile of rubble and, almost as a side issue, the Pope dead underneath it. What the hell was Pope doing in the Colosseum in the first place? It's not okay. Never mind. To say that it is funny that aliens killed the Pope, though. I'd give Diane here that's pretty cool. To say that the Italian government was annoyed would be somewhat understating the case. Shortly thereafter, before the bodies were cold, Janelle suspected the former base commander was relieved of his command. There was a brief interregnum period of a week or so while an investigative team came down and looked the place over. Then Janelle, at that point a colonel over in Rio, had abruptly been promoted to XCOM base commander and shipped off to run this godforsaken pit. At the time, while not entirely understanding the rationale that had caused the sudden boon to land on her, Janelle had been delighted. It had been a career advancement far beyond her expectations, at least in terms of time. She hadn't expected to make a commander for years yet, and she was further excited because the powers that be plainly wanted her to act like a new broom, in the same way she had on a lesser level with her previous commands. Janelle had jumped into the job joyously. Now, though, she wished desperately for the good old days when she had been able to just jump out of a lightning and blow up with a clean conscience anything that looked like it intended to make her day less than pleasant. She could no longer allow herself to the simple luxury of handling her problems with grenades or an autocannon. Now she had to use balance sheets, nearly as deadly to humans anyway, and a lot less satisfying. The piezo-static noise of gunfire rattled in her earpiece. People, target the vehicles. The light won't last, but it's better than nothing. Janelle smiled to herself. Ari was never one to waste resources. He had been about the only one of that mind around Erhil when she arrived. 13 months. Janelle had been busy since then. She had come to a place where the tension level seemed so much higher than they ever should at a base that was working properly. There were plenty of reasons for it, but at the bottom of them, the simple fact that no one there really trusted anyone else to do their job because no one up top had spent any serious time making sure they did it. Janelle sensed this very clearly but said nothing about it to anyone at first. She spent a peaceful first couple of weeks as Queen Log, sitting still and looking around to see who was using what and who was wasting it. Fighting aliens was, after all, an expensive business, and even with the whole planet in crisis, under siege by what appeared to be half of some alien planet's ecology, money to fight them still didn't grow on trees. The previous base commander at Erhil, wherever he was, and Janelle hadn't inquired, knowing someone would gossip the info to her sooner or later, had started out with a good kitty. But he had blown an astonishing amount of it on research, producing few results and managing little successful control of that period's repeated alien terror attacks in North Africa. Janelle had looked over the accounts and become determined to do better. There were a lot of things Erhil Magoon needed if the aliens were not simply to move in and set up housekeeping. At the end of those first 2 weeks, Queen Log became Queen Stork in earnest, and Janelle set out to start shaking the place into order, and specifically to make a lot of money. Oh, she was farming motion detectors. That's what we do. She fired a lot of science personnel, who had been sitting around wasting perfectly good money and food on vague projects that former base commander had never sufficiently investigated. She started to sell even slightly outdated munitions and captured alien paraphernalia to all the anonymous bidders in sight. Oh, cool, at least, they also nailed that part where, we were suspecting that this would be going on a black market. I'd sell laser cannons to the Tooth Fairy if he turned up with cash. Tooth Fairy is a guy? I thought Tooth Fairy was a lady. Anyway, Janelle announced, and shortly thereafter many little private flying craft started dropping out of the sky, their pilots and passengers offering Janelle's secret civilian intermediaries all manner of hard currencies for guns and alien corpses and invaders, metal, and all the other sellables that successful interceptions provided. The alien corpses sometimes gave her second thoughts. What are they doing with them? Using them for alien snuff movies? It was something of a mystery. The corpses weren't a source of anything valuable in the sense of pharmaceuticals or other chemicals, and no one she knew used them as food. No one she knew. Janelle made a wry face, wondering whether those corpses were being rendered down somehow and the components sold as instant soup to other aliens for the various subspecies that needed it. Such a discovery wouldn't have surprised her. Humans would buy anything from anyone and sell anything to anyone. Treachery was as commonplace as honesty, and Janelle couldn't stop it. All she could do was work to do her best for her own side. She dug new hangar facilities and built new labs and engineering works. Then she hired scientists to replace the ones she had fired. Okay. She looked most carefully at their credentials and gave her department heads meticulous instructions regarding what researches she wanted done and how fast she wanted to see results. If they blew it, she fired them. Within minutes, some complained. Janelle let them complain. Erhil Magun swiftly got a name as a place where someone who could produce results would be given large amounts of research space, whether they were looking at the immune systems of floaters or neural chemotransmission in chrysalids. It was all the same to Janelle, and extremely talented scientists started fighting to work at Erhil. Not bad, she thought, for a place that's just a bare patch in the rock. She started building guns. Big time. You can never have enough guns, was Janelle's motto. That's a bit bland. Anyway. Cannon is... Plural of cannon is cannon? I would assume plural of cannon is cannons. Anyway, were her specialties, mostly because of their extravagant profit margins. Oh, she was farming the cannons. Good one, Janelle, good one. That's cool. That's in the book. Nice. Right. She sometimes wondered whose armory she was supplying, but then she stopped wondering. Lost the thing. What nation might suddenly find itself with an extremely well-armed rebellion on its hands? But Janelle entertained such thoughts only briefly. At the moment, national rebellions had to be considered mere local squabbles compared with what XCOM and the world had to deal with. If the cost of driving the aliens off the planet was the fall of a local government or two, well, that was life. There wasn't a nation on Earth whose internal balances hadn't been thrown out of whack by the aliens' incursion. When they were gone, there would be time for normal state affairs to restart itself, of course. There would still be losses of life and other injustices, but at least people native to this planet would be the ones cleaning up the mess. And there was always the smaller matter of UFO components. The previous interceptor crews had felt no particular pressure from their boss to shoot down alien craft where they could be properly plundered. A shocking laxity. There had been much too much of the who cares, why risk our own skins, just dump it in the med mindset at Erhil. Janelle had watched the interceptor crews operate for those first couple of weeks. Then she sacked almost all the colonels and some captains, started retraining a few others, and restocked the crews. Indeed, their attrition rate had already been so high that this wasn't hard. Then she personally took them out on a few runs to show them how it was to be done. So she was also a pilot? Weird. Gunfire in her earpiece, very close. A grunt, someone coming down on the ground, hard. Janelle stiffened, listened. There was still certain breathing going on in the background, quick but not labored. He's okay. The sound of plasma rifle again, very close. Ares' typical staccato pattern. Careful, not scattershot, not wasteful of energy. Sudden silence. Report. They're scattering, boss. The batch is heading northwest. Janelle smiled again. That same slightly crooked smile. He had been a big help to her during those first couple of weeks. One of the only 2 or 3 people at Erhil who appeared to have their heads screwed on the right way. Colonel Lawrence had not precisely folded her around, as some had, seeking to butter up the new commander or to find out where her weaknesses were, but always seemed to be somewhere handy when something needed explaining. The big, blonde, broad-shouldered shape with the scarred face and the droopy-lidded brown eyes would be leaning against a wall in the mess, or half sticking out of a Firestorm's maintenance access ports accessible, ready to talk, easy to talk to. He had not gone out of his way, as some of the Airhill staff had done, to badmouth other staff or officers. Lawrence would simply state what seemed to be wrong with something and what seemed to be needed to fix it. Then he would let you draw your own conclusions. Blame did not seem to interest him. Having things work, a firestorm, a cannon, a command structure, did interest him. So cool, straight-headed, and unusual an attitude could hardly avoid attracting Janelle's attention, for she too was more interested in fixing things than wasting time complaining about what went wrong. Soon enough, she began talking to Lawrence regularly about getting the base working properly again. Soon enough, Lawrence became Ari. And after a while, he became so Ari is just his first name, right? She just started calling her first name, I guess. Okay, I guess we're getting some romantic territory here. And after a while, he became more than that. Ooh, sexy. But that was his business and Janelle's, no one else's. I'm not sure it's allowed to have sex with your second in command in military terms. Is that okay? I don't know. I just somehow don't feel that is okay. Anyway, more fire noises in her earpiece. Fire noises. Jesus Christ. The insistent booming of autocannon and more chat between the teams as they work towards some common goal. The piazza, Janelle briefly thought of the leave they had taken together 9 months ago. So everyone basically knows. While discussing private business. Ari had insisted they go up to Ravenna to see some mosaics. Janelle, never much of an art fan, had gone along to humor him and had been somewhat surprised by Ari's profound silence in the face of the ancient, stiff-robed, dark-eyed figures laid into the walls and floors of the tomb there. She was surprised, too, to find herself moved by the haunting expressions looking at them from the far end of time. Sorrowful, thoughtful, and Ari's expression, which matched theirs, and Ari's expression, God damn it, the sentence structure, man, is whack in this. As to quote the author, is quite whack. A little while afterward, in the cafe in the street, Ari had drunk wine and filled the evening air with laughter, belittling his own response. Whatever that means. Janelle had smiled and nodded, going along with him, but she realized then that there was a lot more to this man than she had suspected, and that it was going to take her a long time to find out what else might be there. Ooh. If they survived, of course, for the world was not exactly the safe and stable place it had seemed before the aliens had arrived. She laughed softly at that thought, that the late 90s now seemed safe and stable compared to what the world had lately become. Late 90s, lately become. I'm sorry, I just can't stomach this stuff sometimes. Anyway, Paula got a clean perimeter back there. This again, because you obviously can't really tell by my my voice, but this is the chatter coming through the earpiece. No problem, boss. A lot of mutants over this way. One damn near pulled Clive's arm off, but he's still alive. He's coping, Janelle thought, and bent her head to gaze at the piece of paper again. They had all been coping and doing it better than ever. Iril Magoon had finally become a viable proposition after 13 months of her attacking its weak spots one after another. Its manufacturing arm was doing very nicely at keeping the necessary money rolling in. Interceptions were going well. Few of them happened over water anymore, if Janelle's teams could help it. She had taught them better. They were doing fairly well in terms of Delirium 115 pickup, better judging by the monthly averages than many older and better established bases. She intended to improve that and to go on improving her team's response times and results on terror attack sites. There were still things about Magoon that bothered her. Janelle's great local worry, the lack of a mind shield, had finally been handled a few months ago. 6 months back, she had hawked or sold nearly everything the base didn't really need to make the balloon payment on the screen. over the howls of protest of some of her under officers. They had spent a lean couple of months making do and hanging on financially by their nails, waiting for the parts and technicians to arrive. Janelle had turned into something of a harpy on the subject of economically successful interceptions, until the flight crews began to complain that she would sell her own grandmother to an anonymous bidder as an alien artifact. The nastier of the wits added that, considering the commander's present conduct, Janelle's grandmother probably was an alien. Possibly a celatid or some other poisonous old bag. And as for Janelle, yet it was, and then it just abruptly ends there. Anyway, yet it was astonishing how the morale of the place improved the day the screen went on. The tension of Errol dropped off as though someone had thrown a switch. Well, Janelle thought with some satisfaction, someone did. And it always helped knowing that your enemies couldn't hear you thinking. Other things still needed doing too. She wanted to build more hangar space. It's just sort of hilarious how it like just veers into this just base management, which is something that like when Ed and I are doing the videos, we tend to cut it out but here it's actually the other way around. It's included in the damn thing. Anyway, I think we can continue for a bit longer for this for this episode. She also needed more research space. It's like she's going through a list of things that she needs. One of her people was doing really sterling work on ethereals, and other scientists from all over fighting to come work for him, but she had nowhere to put them. They needed more containment space for captured aliens too. She sighed. A commander's work is never done until you get something like this. She stared at the paper. The next paragraph said, "Oh, there is more." Okay, so I thought it was just that. You're promoted. Anyway, so next paragraph said, "You are also required to delegate local authority to your staff as necessary, soonest pursuant to your immediate relocation to Switzerland for location scouting and beginning construction of a new major base. Planning parameters require new base to be sited and established within 2 months." Janelle swore softly and opened one of her desk drawers, where she felt around for a spare dart. It was all her own fault, of course. She had complained privately to Ari and more publicly in reports to Central that the base at Magoon was insufficient to handle terror attacks in Central and Northern Europe. Granted, attacks down this way had fallen off somewhat after their base got its mind shield in, but Europe had been heating up, and her teams were badly stretched getting up there in time to do anything useful. Yes, she knew how badly the Frankfurt and Moskva bases. Why is she calling them in Russian? It's weird. And Moskva bases had been hit, but it was hardly fair for Magoon to hold the bag for 2 continents at once. It barely had enough resources for North Africa, which is not a continent, by the way. And here was her answer in black and white. Central had listened to her. She swore again. "Save us from bureaucrats with ears," she muttered, "and brains. 2 months. 2 goddamn months." She sighted on the picture of the former base commander, let fly, and hit him unerringly in the nose. Okay, so the picture on the dartboard turned out to be the previous base commander. This is my reward for being right, Janelle thought bitterly. For getting this job done correctly and whipping this place into shape. It was just beginning to work smoothly. Things were settling down. It's not fair. And I hate the cold. She got off another dart. "If I ever meet you in the flesh," she said conversationally to the picture, "you'd better pray there's nothing sharp nearby." Why is she blaming that guy for her troubles now? It's a bit weird. In her car, oh sorry, that's not a car, that's in her ear, someone said, 20 mutants dead. 20? We were busy. Janelle nodded. Her teams had learned good habits, or simply relearned them. Either way, they were doing their jobs. She felt sure that some of the tension she had felt when she first came to Magoon was attributable to a lot of people feeling that they weren't doing their jobs, weren't being pushed past their own fears by a commander who knew what they were all there for. defending the Earth as though every battle was the last one. Any single chance skirmish or interception could be the hidden turning point that would make all the difference to the planet's survival. The teams were missing that vital sense that they made a difference in what was going on. There had been resistance to Janelle's pushing at first, though not from people who counted. Ari, in particular, had listened to some of Janelle's more savage pep talks to her flying and fighting teams and had come away with an expression of silent, grim approval, the look of a man who has wanted to say something similar to his teams for a long time, but has lacked the support from higher up. That support, Janelle knew, meant everything to a base. A base with a lackadaisical boss gets nothing done, loses its purpose, dies under stupid circumstances. Man, we already heard this like 5 times, but okay, keep going, I guess. Whatever happens, that's not going to happen to my people. I guess that's her internal monologue again. But oh God, who the hell am I going to live in charge here? And then in her earpiece the scream, very close, and another sound, a kind of shocked grunt, Ari. The sound she had heard him make when surprised or badly hurt. Oh, she surprised him before. Silence, followed by an explosion that blew the connection dead. Janelle sat very still behind her desk for a few seconds. The connection did not come back. Joel, she said. Lost it, boss. All right, she said, and though nothing was the matter, as though nothing was the matter. Re-establish when you can. Call down to the library. I need some maps. Europe at 1 to 50,000 and some big scale ones of Switzerland. 1 to 10,000 if they got them. Right, boss, Joel said very softly and cut the connection. Janelle laid aside the second dart, fell around for a pen, turned over the piece of paper and very deliberately started to make 2 lists. One was a list of people she would take with her when she left, tomorrow or the next day for Switzerland. The other was a list of officers who might be trusted to take over the handling of her Hilmagun while she was away. She started to put Ari's name on the first list. Janelle stopped, looked at it, and at the second list. Then she most deliberately put them both aside and started to make a third one, a list of projects for her new sub-commander to start work on at Magoon. There's going to be a lot to do here, she thought, and ignored the way her eyes were starting to sting. On that sad note, we are going to end this part of the read-through. I think next time we're going to finish chapter 1, possibly go into chapter 2 already, because I think there's only like 5 pages left. Hope you guys enjoyed the second part. If you did so, you know what to do, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!